Joan Woodward. I'm a retired landscape architecture professor, Cruces chapter representative of the Native Plant Society of New Mexico. And welcome everyone. And the idea behind this session really desire to get together, to share our enthusiasms and knowledge regarding native plants and places and sources. And I don't know about you, but I've sorely missed that exchange. So I'm hoping that this evening will substitute for face-to-face contact, the best we can do for now, and get us out there and looking and renewing our interest in plants and places in this remarkable region. The other inspiration for this came from an interview that Jackie Meineke held recently, and she asked me in this interview to identify my favorite book about plants or gardens, which proved to be a nearly impossible task, but a really fun one to attempt. So in the spirit of that, I have asked all of you to do this impossible thing, which is to, within 3 minutes, introduce yourselves and talk about your favorite plant or place or garden or book reference and why. And I think we'll all get a vicarious pleasure from that, and we'll look forward to exploring these places on our own. And I'm hopeful that even the most Zoom fatigued of us will find this to be time well spent and will motivate us to go out and look. And I'd like to start with some prospective good news. The Mesilla Valley Audubon Society has approached us in the Las Cruces chapter, drafted a proclamation for the City Council and the County Commissioners to declare April 18th through the 24th as Native Plant Week, where there would be articles and radio interviews and a focus on native plant and their environmental or economic and cultural benefits. They currently have declared, at least in the county, let's see, it was, I think it was called Septic Awareness Week. So I think we've got a good case for why Native Plant Week should be declared. So make a pitch for that to your commissioners and councilmen, and we hope to have a good week for that. So with that, I turn it over to Zach and Sara.
All right, so thank you everybody for being here. It's very exciting experience, and this is a nice dynamic that John brought into the table, and I think that is very successful. We can see that we have a lot of participants, so let's give it a try. And I think already this is gonna be a very successful event. So I'm just gonna call first Kelly, and then I'm just gonna call people that actually, in the order that Zach send the list to me. So after Kelly will be Donovan. So just to give you the heads up, all right? So take it away, Kelly.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm very happy to be here with you and happy to start out. And I'd like to share a book. And I think Zach has something. Are you going to put it up, Zach? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to put it up. Can people see it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I can see something. Go ahead and give us the full screen there. And this book is called Eulota. I don't think any of you are going to have known this book before, by W.R. McGaw. And you can see a picture of him there. He was a Presbyterian minister in Northern Ireland, or Ulster. And the book was written in 1934, as you see. And this is a charming little quick read that is just full of the adventure and the enchantment of botany. Now, who advances the screen, me or you?
I do.
Well, let's go to the next one. And on the right, you can see the book title is actually named for a genus of moss, the genus Eulota. And there is Eulota crispa. On the inside of my copy that I got from Great Britain, I happened just by accident through a used bookstore, get a copy where the author had included a little poem. And so you can see it there, and I've put a little transcription. This book you'll link with Galway town, with bumps of bus and lipstick, with Glendalough and Burren Brown, and botanists of mild renown. In memories past, 'twill put a nick. So that was I guess I'll say a thrill for me to have an autographed copy with a little poem written by the author. The characters in the book, down at the lower right, there is a young man named Holt, and he's caught in a little town in Ireland, and he's caught in a rainstorm, and he seeks shelter and comes across an older couple, Mary and Ver, or Ver, short for Oliver. And they invite him into their home and give him a couple of hours respite from the weather. And while there, he gets introduced to the world of mosses. And so the book revolves around this moss Eulota and Holt learning about mosses, but they also introduce him to a young woman named Eileen. And so mixed in with the romance of mosses is the romance of Holt and Eileen. It's done in a very charming, old-fashioned style. When finally he kisses her, it's just like the old 1930s movies. The text says that he opens his arms and she came into his arms, and then fade to black. So it's a little bit old-fashioned in that way, but absolutely charming and enchanting. And so you get this very nice little story and romance woven around their search for the moss Eulota. Next and last one. So Magaw's books, he's done 3. They're all out of print, but you can find them. If you go to someplace like abebooks.com, you can get a used copy shipped from Great Britain, and that's what I did. I went ahead because they're beyond copyright, and I scanned Eulota, the book, and then stuck it on Lulu just at print cost. So you could go there and get a printed copy. Or if you wanted to just send me an email, I'd be happy to send you a PDF of the book. So I recommend this highly. It's about 200 pages. You'll read it in an afternoon or an evening. It'll inspire you to get out and do some botanizing. I can guarantee almost that you'll be enchanted by the book. I cannot guarantee that you'll find a romance. So that's my recommendation.
So I forgot to mention, if you have questions, just either raise your hand or write it down in the chat box and I will bring them over. So I have a question, Kelly. Do we have Eulota in New Mexico?
No, we do not. It's in the eastern United States and California. We have things that look like Eulota, but not that particular genus that we have found yet.
Thank you. So Donovan, if you are ready, take it away.
All right, well, thank you very much, Joan, for organizing this. It seems like a great idea. It's one of the few wonderful things about Zoom is sometimes we get to see people we might not normally see at a regular meeting. So it's quite nice. People from all over, including Tuche down in Chihuahua. So I thought what I'd share with you today was one of the plants that I like and really enjoy here in southern New Mexico. The first time I came across this, I think I was walking or riding my bike on the south side of A Mountain down in the drainages, sort of sandy areas where some moisture might pass. And I came across, as you might imagine, walking through the area and in the later summer after the monsoons have come, and you'd see these blue flowers especially in the morning. And it turns out to be a member of the Commelinaceae family, Commelina erecta, or the dayflower, widow's tears, or the white mouth dayflower is sometimes what it's called. And as you walk up to it, you might just be amazed. So if you go to the next slide, please, Zach.
Sure.
Might be amazed at just how beautiful these little plants are and very, very delicate. And I think one of the things that excited me about them the first time I saw them here is I think of them, the family is largely tropical. And I don't tend to think of it as something I should be seeing here in the desert. A little bit surprising, like ferns, until you know more about their biology, you might not think, oh, ferns just shouldn't be here, but they are. And this is actually here. It's another element that surprised me about it the first time I saw it was that it's actually quite common, maybe not common, but its distribution is largely in most states to the east of us. So it has a much larger distribution than we might think. I think there's some discussion about some species limits in this group, but apparently it's also in Africa, well, depending on the treatment, it's also in Africa and parts of Asia. So it's got quite a wide distribution potentially, but it may depend on the treatment there. One more slide, if you don't mind, Zach, the last one. And one of the things that's beautiful about this, obviously it's a nice little monocot. It's got these beautiful bracts beneath the flower there, which holds more flower buds. And each of these flowers will come open one day and that flower will usually wilt and the next one will come up the next day if there's enough water. And there's actually, so you see two beautiful blue petals here, and there's a little white one underneath that's almost translucent and hard to make out. And there's a nice, well, an interesting story behind this. The genus itself, Commelina, was named by Linnaeus to honor two Dutch botanists. I believe their names were Casper and Jan. And one would, I think Casper was the uncle and Jan was a nephew. They were famous contemporaries of Linnaeus's, and he wanted to name this genus in their honor for the work that they'd done for botany. And so that's one version of the story. But there's another version of the story, and that is that Casper Jan had a brother, I believe it's Jan had a brother, whose name was Casparus, and he wasn't quite as prominent as his other two brothers. And so part of the name may derive from, of the genus here, part of the name may derive from Linnaeus playing a joke on the brother that he felt was not quite so productive as the other two members of the Commelin family here that they mentioned. And that third petal was supposed to represent this brother who really hadn't lived up to his potential. Whether or not that's true, who knows? But it's kind of an interesting little story about these particular plants. So that's enough for me. And it's a fun little plant, beautiful to see.
Thank you, Donovan. Any questions? And if you are ready, Rachel, you are welcome to start. And if you can introduce yourself briefly, that will be great.
Oh, wait, which Rachel? You got two Rachels here.
Rachel Yonani. I think that I am speaking, pronouncing your last name correctly.
And is my audio okay?
Yes.
Yeah, your audio is fine.
Okay, so I'm Rachel Giannini. I am a professor in the plant environmental sciences in ornamental horticulture. So I did not know I was supposed to send any slides. I apologize.
No.
So
fine.
A couple of books, websites that I really like. So there's an app called PlantSnap. And I just love PlantSnap because you can just take a picture and you can upload it, and it will help you be able to identify plants you're unfamiliar with. It is a free app and it's just super easy to use. It's not, I haven't yet found it to be incorrect. There's a website I also love. It's called fireflyforest.com. And it is a little bit more marketed towards Arizona, but it helps identify, you see the Southeast Arizona wildflowers and plants. So if you're out hiking around and you maybe you don't have access to PlantSnap, you can go in there and try to identify the wildflowers you might happen to see. I guess the other book that I really, really enjoy is called Edible Landscaping. It's by Rosalind Creasy. So I'm a huge proponent of edible landscaping, but of course, Rosalind Creasy lives in California, and she has a far easier time getting edible landscaping to be also beautiful and productive because they have all that stuff that comes out of the sky. I would love to see edible landscaping become more popular around here. Fingers crossed. We'll see if we can get there. So that's a couple of things that I really enjoy. I actually got to see Rosalind Creasy's home, where much of the photos in her book are taken. I was on a landscaping tour in with the Association of Professional Landscape Designers, and it was just astonishing because it was so visually appealing. It was so aesthetically pleasing. And then it was also so much food she was deriving off of her very small home in California. And it was interesting, the story, because she got into lots of trouble when she first started doing this, because people, she started doing this decades ago, and people were very much like, what? This isn't grass. You can't do this. But she kept fighting them, and eventually she won them over. So it's a very inspiring book. So I guess that's all I have to contribute today. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. That's very interesting. If you have questions, remember to type it in the chat box. And Connie Maswell, we have a question, Zach?
Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to clarify. So nobody needs to have slides. Just a couple of overachievers sent slides early on. So don't feel bad if you don't have any slides, but I'll do my best to try to search for anything that you'd like to illustrate when you talk. So I have Google Earth open for seeing something on the map. I have SciNet windows open, Tropicos windows, browsers. I can look up, whatever you like. So maybe at the beginning, if you want some type of a audio visual to go with what you're going to say, just let me know. I don't know the best way to do that. Maybe pass the news to Sarah, because when I'm sharing my screen, I can't really see people's comments easily.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to say. Oh, and then remember to unmute and mute your microphone when you want us to be able to hear you, and when you don't want us to hear you. So yeah, don't forget to do that.
So,
and one more, and it's 3 minutes, no more.
all right.
Yeah, I haven't been timing, Joan, but maybe, yeah, somebody.
We have a full house tonight.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So Connie Maswell, you're ready?
Yeah, I am ready.
You can go.
I'm going to talk about actually the book that I use almost every day. It's extremely useful to me. I've been working on the Jornada experimental range for over 20 years. And I think I have had a copy of it ever since the second edition. I may even have had a first edition, but it's Kelly Allred's Flora of the Jornada Plain. And even though I'm retired and I'm working part-time on a project for the Jornada, I still use that book every day. And also, Kelly, look what I've got.
Terrific.
Loda. But yeah, I think I've got a copy in my backpack. I've got a copy on my desk. There's always one nearby. It's extremely useful to me. And also Flora Neo-Mexicana. But any of the books about native plants are so useful to me in what I do. And I also like to get outside a lot and look at the actual plants. So, but I guess that's all I've got to say about that. But yeah, useful, very useful, wonderful.
Thank you, Connie. Rich, if you are ready. Oh, first, do we have questions? I can see one comment for you, Zach. Jackie needs to have some illustration for Salvia Gregii.
Okay.
And her book is Philosophy in the Garden. So, Rich, if you are ready, please go ahead.
Did you say Rich?
Senior Rich.
Oh, okay.
Rich.
So when was it Joan that mentioned this via email? You can hear me, yes?
Yes.
Okay. I got to thinking, what's my favorite plant? And I don't know. That's the easiest thing to say. But I got to thinking about creosote bush, which I look at with some admiration, actually. And that's because I think you can teach an entire botany course from it. And I'm not about to do that now, but I can relay a few things about it that I think might be interesting to you. First of all, you can talk about the unspecificity of common names with creosote bush, which is one of its common names, by the way, creosote bush. And we're talking about Laria tridentata now, a member of the Zygophalaceae. And one of the common names in English is chaparral, but that's not very descriptive either, other than it's a shrub with tiny leaves, which the plants in the vegetation type chaparral have. But creosote bush is not part of the chaparral at all. So giving it a common name like that doesn't help very much at all. It's also called in Mexico gobernadora. I like that name. It means governess, and it sort of gives the idea that it's everywhere, not worth much anywhere, and takes a lot of resources to support it, supposedly. And so it was given the name gobernadora. That one might be fairly appropriate, I don't know. And then another one that's common, particularly in northwestern Mexico, is hediondilla, which is expressive in the sense that it means little stinker or stinking thing. And so creosote bush, of course, has a very strong odor. The other thing I like about creosote bush, other than it's a tough plant that does well in the desert here, is that it's full of conundrums. And for example, when it got here, I'm not quite sure, it may have been a million years ago or so ago. It has its, well, I don't know how to say this. It has the sort of original race, if you will, is on the Chihuahuan Desert. And that one has simply 2 sets of chromosomes, as we all do. And it's called a diploid. And then on the Sonoran, it's a tetraploid, meaning 4 sets of chromosomes. And on the Mojave and Coloradan, it's got 6 sets of chromosomes, a hexaploid. That's kind of neat in itself. And those differences in chromosome number are strong enough to cause speciation, except you cannot tell the difference between these races virtually at all. An expert might be able to, but it's pretty tenuous. The other thing about this conundrum is the oldest known records in North America are from the westernmost part of the range in the Inyo Valley. And they go back 50 to 100,000 years as pollen grains. And the plants themselves, they divide as they grow in a big ring, but some of those rings are approximately 12,000 years old, which is pretty nifty. Boy, there you can see the activity of botanists. Lots of people working in North America, very much fewer in South America. It also, you could teach some ecology from the course, from the plant. It has terpenes in it and other sorts of nasty compounds that keep most animals from grazing it, but a few animals, such as some grasshoppers and katydids, have adapted to it and use them as the primary or possibly the only food source that they use. It also germinates not easily. If you've ever tried to germinate it, it takes about 1 inch of rain or 6 inches of rain to get a minor proportion of the seeds even to come out of the ground. And so with those ideas, go out and look at creosote bush and say, my goodness, that's an amazing little plant. And thank you.
Thank you, Reed. Questions? Okay, John White, please. Your turn. John, are you ready? Is John here?
I don't see him.
Okay, so Jeff Anderson, is he here? Jeff?
I think he was having technical problems, but Doesn't look like he was able to find his way back.
He
Okay.
did send me a text, and he says his favorite plant is the Texas madrone, Arbutus thalapensis. And he did his master's thesis work on it. And indeed, it's a remarkable tree from the Guadalupes. So he did send me that and send his regrets that he couldn't join us due to the technical difficulty.
Homer.
All right. So Jackie?
Hello. So I'm Jackie Minicky, and some of you probably remember Enchanted Gardens back in the day, because that was the reason I started it, was to sell native plants. And then I also currently write columns for Neighbors Magazine, thus the interview with Joan, that's called Thoughtful Gardener. And I have a wonderful time still doing my writing. So I thought it was favorite plant, but I also picked up on the book theme. So I've got both. On the favorite plant, I think of people and their gardens and success, and my favorite is Salvia Gregii, also called cherry sage, Texas sage, all different kinds of names with sage in it. And it's really easy. I can go through a list real quick of why I think it's wonderful. It blooms 9 to 10 months of the year, and it's green year round. It's drought tolerant. It has very few pests, occasionally some spittlebug, but that's it. Tough as nails, full sun, part shade, drought, nasty soil, sand, clay, rock, it doesn't care. It runs from about 18 inches to 3 feet. The colors vary from white to red, coral, pink, and now some violets and blues have come out. And the hummers love it. So who can resist such a wonderful, tough little plant? So normally I go by season, but see, we're coming into my season for the Salvia Gregii. It should start blooming in the next week or two. So I'm very seasonally oriented on these things. Now, I recently read a book that, it's not your usual gardening book. It is called Philosophy in the Garden. It's by Damon Young. He's out of Melbourne, Australia. So how in the world did I ever find this? I don't know. But he connects philosophers to the gardens that influenced their philosophy. And so you read about the philosophers as real people like all of us, who also happen to have ideas about gardening or escape into their gardening, which allows them to think. So it's a wonderful read. It's a couple of 100 pages, just a delightful book. I grabbed it off of Amazon. So it's not a hard one to get. It's not an expensive one to get. So if you happen to like that intersection of philosophy and garden, it's a really good choice. If I'd had time to say any other plants, I like salvias in general, especially any for the Southwest. My other favorite salvia is the Germander Sage or Mexican blue sage, which is that salvia with the very long second name that I cannot pronounce because I don't do Latin. But that would be perhaps another spring bloomer in blue. You can't go wrong with a plant that's got blue flowers and silver leaves in a garden. So I hope everybody is already thinking about their gardens for spring and planning all the fun things they're going to do there. Thanks.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Rachel Burke, if you are ready, you can take.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. And we're trying to stay to no more than 3 minutes per person.
Okay. So hey everyone, I'm Rachel Burke. I am a wildlife biologist for the Bureau of Land Management in Las Cruces. I see a lot of familiar faces. I feel like I've met a lot of you before at Native Plant Society conferences. I was a botany technician for Patrick Alexander for a few years. And I swear I tried to get him to come to this meeting, but he forgot about it. But I guess the plant I'll talk about is Palmer's agave, which I studied as a graduate student working on nectar feeding bats starting in 2014. I didn't realize I've been studying the same plant for so long. But I've been trying to map the distribution of this plant in relation to nectar feeding bat habitat. It was the main focus of my master's thesis. And so I did a lot of field work in the Hatchet Mountains, Animas Mountains, Palancios, Huachucas and Patagonia Mountains in Arizona and Chiricahuas, and destroyed a pickup truck while doing it. My technician almost got bit by a rattlesnake. I've never seen a human jump so high. And one of my favorite memories of working with this plant is I was doing nectar production surveys. And so I would have a 12, I don't remember if it was 12 or 14 feet, but I had an aluminum ladder out in the middle of nowhere with me, and I would climb up at sunrise and take nectar samples. And then one morning I looked down and there was a coyote at the base of my ladder trying to play with me. And so we got down and I was trying to get away, and it wasn't afraid of us. And we went away for a little while and came back, and he chewed up all my water bottles and my coffee thermos. And I was really mad because I really wanted to drink that coffee. But this was in Portal, and turns out someone was hand feeding the wildlife. So that's why he wasn't afraid of me. But yeah, I've done a lot of work on this plant. I love the habitat in which it occurs. The Madrian Archipelago is probably my favorite place. And yeah, I think that's probably it. If I ever wanted to do a PhD, I would probably switch to a different agave species, and I think maybe look at hybridization between Agave perii and Agave lechugia and the pollinators which allow that to happen. And yeah, I'll probably be reaching out to folks because I am trying to get a citizen science project going, monitoring agave phenology and also any nectar feeding bat observations at hummingbird feeders. It's a big thing that people do in Arizona. People have realized that these bats that drink up a ton of nectar have been visiting residential hummingbird feeders. And I know that that's a thing people are noticing in New Mexico, especially in the Silver City area, but I think in a lot of other places, we just aren't looking for it. And one of the nectar bats that we have in New Mexico is endangered, and being able to work with people to get a better understanding of their distribution will be very beneficial to lots of people. So you'll be hearing more.
It's exciting, Rachel. Thank you. I have a question for you. How do you get to make collections of agave, and how do you make them if you have?
Have I made any collections like for herbarium?
For herbarium, yeah.
I've never done it.
Yeah, you see, it can be challenging, that image you show that.
It's a prickly process.
Who wants to press that on the screen?
We want it though.
I
Yeah,
think
we
there's
need
a
it.
chapter in the Gentry book, in the Howard Gentry's agave book on how to prepare agave specimens.
Yeah, carefully is the answer. You do it carefully.
So we have one comment here. It's from Rennie. His microphone or her microphone is not working. So the comment is that she moves to Las Cruces a year ago from North California, and she has planted about 150 native plants in her garden here. So she's wondering if somebody can suggest a good book on gardening with natives, specifically a book that can tell something about the basics of repruning, time, etc. And also a book for identifying native plants. He or she is a photographer of native plants, and she has a website. And if you can see the chatting, you can see that the reference for the website. So first of all, a book on how to work gardening with natives, and then the second question is how to identify plants. A book or reference to identify native plants. Anybody can take that. Nope.
Yeah, I think maybe they can just put the answer in the, okay, Jackie raised her hand.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Yes. Well, my favorite book still, and it's obvious from the tattered condition it's in, is Judy Mielke, Mielke. She writes about Chihuahuan desert plants as a landscaper, as a landscape person who installs landscapes. And so she not only gives you the names of the plants, but also the places that they fit well in a garden and how they can be mixed with other plants. But for pruning and that kind of information, I always go to Mountain States Wholesale Nursery's website. Mountain States has sheets on practically every plant in their collection, and it tells you everything: how much water, how much sun, how tall, how wide, what color flower, pictures. But it also will give you the information on how to prune it, which is just magical. So that's where I go when I want to know how to prune something.
Say something.
Hi, there's a book called Southwestern Landscaping with Native Plants by Judith Phillips that is a very good book. This is Carolyn.
Yeah, I put in chat any book by Judith Phillips or Mary Irish are good, and I agree with Jackie's Milky. And then also Common Southwest Native Plants, which I believe is by Jack Carter.
John mentioned that also book by David Salmans is good too. And I think that maybe we can compile these references and maybe mail the information later for everybody through email. All right. So Daniela wrote, if she's ready, she can go ahead introducing herself, and just you can start now if you are able to do it.
Hello, everybody. I'm Daniela Roth. I'm the coordinator of the Endangered Plant Program for the state of New Mexico out of the Forestry Division and out of Santa Fe. So I know some of you, but not all of you because you're significantly further south. And by nature of my job, my favorite plants really are rare plants. And it's very hard to pick one of them. There's about 235 that we consider rare and or endangered in the state of New Mexico. And 109 of those are actually endemic to New Mexico and they don't occur anywhere else. But working with rare plants has its challenges, and I'm gonna have to say that a lot of our rare plants are in serious trouble. But one of them actually is doing pretty well, and we have been really successful increasing populations through management, and that would be the Pecos sunflower. That's a plant here in my background, and it occurs in a total of 7 locations in the world, and 5 of those are in New Mexico and 2 in Texas. And the closest one to Cruces might be over in the Roswell area and the Bitter Lakes and bottomless lakes. And it flowers for only about 2 weeks out of the year. But if you catch it at the right time of year, you can literally bathe in a sea of gold, in a sea of sunflowers. It's my happy flower. And I make sure I go and I visit Pecos sunflower each year around the first week of September. And in my case, I go to Santa Rosa, where the Forestry Division actually owns a wetland strictly for the protection of Pecos sunflower. And Pecos sunflower is a wetland species. It grows only in low elevation wetlands of the American Southwest. So that's one of my favorite plants. I made it a goal in my professional life to get to meet every single one of our 235 rare and endangered plants, which is quite an undertaking. Many of which are only known from 1 or 2 locations, but I'm probably about 60 to 70% through. And that gets me pretty much into all parts of New Mexico. And I just want to make a quick pitch for a book, a favorite book that most recently came out, and that's Christina Selby's Best Wildflower Hikes in New Mexico. And it's basically a hiking guide that details 40 great hikes in New Mexico that you can do, and details which flowers you might be finding along the way and where. It has excellent photos of the wildflowers that you might encounter along your hike, in addition to maps, and it also features various specific flower for each hike, where it gives you more details about what makes that plant so special. So that's a great book for plant enthusiasts that also like to go hiking in a lot of our great places in New Mexico.
Excellent. Thank you, Daniela. We have the last speaker, official speaker, but remember, anybody can chime in. So this is Pam Mcbride. Is Pam there?
I thought I saw her.
Yes, I am. I didn't know I would be speaking. Joan, did you do this?
Surprise.
Well, recently I really enjoyed going to Mahoney Park in the Florida Mountains. We went there to look at a site that the BLM had given these shysters a permit to mine. An entire hill was going to be blown away. So it's near Deming. And my favorite plant there was one I had never seen before. And we were there September 24th through the 26th. And there were, I identified 64 taxa, 41 of them were in bloom. And I'll briefly talk about my other favorite place. And they're my favorite places because they're real arid, and I can always count on going there and seeing beautiful plants in the end of August and September, when you would think everything is kind of declining. So my favorite plant was one I hadn't seen, and it's called Jatropha macrorrhiza. Big root Jatropha. And it's just an incredible member of the Euphorbiaceae, beautiful white flowers, just absolutely gorgeous. And the leaves are reminiscent of poinsettias. So that was really a great trip. And then my other favorite place to go in the fall, late summer, fall, is the Malpais, and to go to the Narrows Rim Trail, where you can see Silene, is it radiata, the red one? And, you know, it's just amazing that when we went there in late August, there were over 75 taxa that we identified. And it's not radiata, Lanceneata. Silene lanceolata. And of course, if you know that plant, it's just so beautiful, bright red. And there it is yelling out at you on the side of a hill as you're going up to approach the trail that overlooks the lava formations. It's just a really wonderful trail. So I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. So we finished with the list of speakers that we have lined up. So if anybody has some questions or comments or some additional contributions, welcome. You just raise your hand.
How do you raise your hand?
Oh, well, if you cannot raise your hand, just say, I want to speak, Joanne. So you want to go?
Okay. Okay. I'm from the Northeast, so I gardened a lot in my yard and tried to get things blooming, you know, most of the year except for the winter. And it's very exciting to be here because I'm amazed at how plants, how beautiful they can be, and they live in these kinds of conditions. I've been trying to, my yard started out pretty sandy with some bushes and trees, and I've been trying to, I get the compost from the city, and I've been trying to change the soil and get things to grow. And so I've gotten some things to grow okay. But now there's a strip next to the driveway that supposedly the city, it's a piece the city made, and there's various weeds growing. I'm globe mallow and the solanaceae that with the purple, the little purple flowers, that seems to grow okay, and grasses and whatever. So I have thrown, I bought a couple of packets of dry area seeds, and I'm hoping that they will grow, and I want to know what to do to make them grow, of wildflowers that supposedly are adapted to the Southwest. And also walking this last week, somebody was digging up an agave. It's about a foot tall, and I planted that in the front yard. And I don't know, you know, if there's anything I should do to make it, help it survive. But it's, you know, it still had some of the dirt. Of course, whoever dug up some of the roots, and I just put it in some of the sandy soil in the front of the house. So though I'm interested in finding out, you know, advice on those two things, how to make the seeds grow in a sort of weedy, barren patch by the house, and how to make the agaves grow. And that's what I'm asking.
So Rani and Jackie are recommending to actually try to work with native plants that are locally adapted, maybe, instead of changing your soils. So just go with the array of plants that we have locally.
I've done that. I have planted that, and some things have survived and some things haven't. But it's not really soil. It was sand in the backyard. And, you know, I've lost a good number of, some of the salvias have made it for a while and then died, and some of the penstemons. And so, yeah, I'm trying to do native plants, but I've been told, you know, when I've gone to lectures at the university, they say, you've got to improve the soil.
Yeah, Rachel Burke mentioned that some of the seeds may need some cold treatment. So before you put the seeds out, maybe
I put them out in the fall. I put
cold.
them out.
I mean, cold temperatures, maybe in your refrigerator. So put them in there for a little bit longer before you put it again back in the soil?
Well, I put them out in the, I planted them in December or late November. So it was cold and
Yeah.
there was some snow. So is there anything else?
No, I don't see another extra comment is that the watering, how much water you put in the native plants can be critical. So I think that maybe you can have a conversation with Jackie. It seems that she's can guide you and Rachel.
I've been using the hose and spraying them every few days, spraying that patch of ground. Because on the packets it says, you know, they need some water, so.
Right. Any other participant? Marisa, go ahead.
Hi, I don't have any advice for you, Joanne, but I just wanted to like introduce myself to the group. So my name is Marissa Mancias. I'm a new master's student at NMSU, and I'll be working on the Wooten project on a piece of it, looking at plant community shifts in the Oregons using historical records. And yeah, that's kind of my little intro. So I'm excited to be here, and I want to come to future meetings. And it's even on a screen, it's nice to see everybody's experiences and the different flowers. And so thank you all.
Thank you, Marisa. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Judy.
Our first participant, Kelly, said that he would be willing to share a PDF of the book. I would love access to his email. I would need his email address in order to contact him.
We can send it to you directly, or Kelly, can you type it in the chat if you want to? There you go. Can you see it, Judy?
I'm looking. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Anybody else?
Thank you.
All right. So before we go, is it time? No?
Can I jump in here?
Yes, John, go ahead.
Sarah, you said that you had a story to tell in case we were the only ones that came tonight.
No? No? Do we have time?
Do you have a favorite to share with us?
Yeah. So this is a very cool story, and I'm so excited because I'm gonna come back with this in a formal research project that has to do with all the favorite subjects that I'd like to touch. It's gonna be dealing with genetics, with morphology, with Ethereum collections, and potentially experiments in a greenhouse. So this is the story of one native plant. The name is Heterotheca subaxillaris. So it's one of the wonderful natives that behaves like a weedy plant in New Mexico. But the story goes beyond New Mexico. What we are gonna tackle with a group of researchers in Israel and then here locally in Louisiana is the genomics of it. So we are learning that this plant was introduced abroad to control aridity and some soil desertification in Israel. And it became there as a seed, and scientists put it in the dune areas of that of their country. And they found out that the plant didn't control aridification, but it became a very nice weed. So now it's a terrible invasive plant in the whole country that is damaging a lot of native communities over there. So this is bringing a very nice experiment for us that we can tackle through time to see how native populations and invasive populations in different parts of the world are behaving, how they are changing genomically, and how they can be in some way controlled. So we need this foundation, kind of basic knowledge of what are the traits that allow this plant to become so aggressive in a different environment. Because the beauty of this is that the plant overseas is actually growing like a giant, enormous plant. And if I have to compare both plants, I have seen the photographs. We will have my finger here with the native as an scale, and then the other plant will be something like that. So it's becoming a monster in terms of size, root system, the leaves, the flowers, everything is so massive in the plants that are growing now in Israel. So we are gonna look into those details. So that's my story. So tune in for some updates.
I also see that Russ Kleinman is on the list. Is that correct, Russ? Are you still there?
No fair. You're not supposed to know I'm here.
Now we know.
As you've learned from Pam, I'm not above surprising people. And I'm curious if there might be a plant that you would be interested in describing for us.
Can I describe a person?
Sure.
I'll tell you what I've been doing today in 3 minutes or less. Kelly Allred and I and a number of other people are doing we currently have a research project going on, Pam Mcbride, at El Malpais National Monument. It involves, our particular project involves mosses, but as I've looked into mosses there, I've run into the name Alton A. Lindsay. Alton Lindsay was the first biologist to do research work as an ecologist at El Malpais. He was there in the 1940s. He was on Admiral Byrd's second Antarctic expedition. He's quite an interesting guy. He got his PhD from Cornell and came out here. He's on staff at UNM for 4 years. And he spent weekends and he spent one whole semester living out at El Malpais doing research there. And he researched virtually everything. He did a large paper, published a large paper on the ecology of El Malpais. His name is Alton A. Lindsay. And Zach, if you're able to, you could probably bring up a picture of him. He's actually well known. He's all over the web. He received a whole number of awards. He also reported on a very interesting cave collapse that had Asplenium trichomanes, a fern that's all over parts of New Mexico. So he's looked into ferns. He was the vertebrate biologist on Admiral Byrd's second expedition to Antarctica. So he's been into birds, he's been into ferns, he's been into mosses, all general ecology. And he's probably done the most extensive work to date by one person anyway at El Malpais. I think that's my contribution.
What was the name again? Sorry, I missed that, Russ.
Alton Anthony Lindsay, Lindsey. Alton is his first name. He used to go by Al. None of those are him though. You're looking for, there he is. That's him as an older man, and you can see the Byrd expedition there. There you go. He worked at El Malpais and he was on staff at UNM for 4 years. After he left UNM is when he went to Purdue. That's where that looks like that webpage came from. I think I'll shut up here.
All right. Going at one, going at two.
I like to say something.
There you go, Tucha.
Oh, about what 7 last night or something like that, and a message popped up from my friend Richard Spellenberg telling me about this meeting, and I said, "Oh, that must be interesting to join see you all. Some that I know, but most of you I really don't have any idea, but it is a pleasure actually for me to see you all. I'm actually a graduate student from, I graduated from Las Cruces, so I consider myself an Aggie. I don't know how many of you are Aggies from New Mexico. So in New Mexico, I lived for 6 years in New Mexico, so I'm fairly known a lot of botanical aspect of New Mexico. Actually, my master's degree was in Lincoln County. That's where I did my studies in the flora of Lincoln National Park with Kelly Allred as my advisor. And I got my master's degree from there in the ag department. So since '82, I moved to Mexico here in Chihuahua, where I became a professor at the university, and then I finished my PhD over here. And since then, I've been living here. And after 35 years of work, I retired. So I'm here in Chihuahua, but I keep working on some projects, and especially documenting some books and then putting together some books. And I didn't know that I had to prepare something to share with you people in this meeting. So probably next time, if you invite me again, I may share something with you. But I really would like to thank you all, and especially to Richard to invite me to this meeting and to finally get to know colleagues or people that are crazy as me to work with plants. That's what people say, you know, that the botanists are crazy, that they go and look for weeds in the field. And so, because actually, one time, I could accept a lot of things, but one time I was really hurt. A companion of mine, actually, he was involved in the project, and we had to go to the Barrancas to study the plant in the Barrancas. I don't know how many of you have known the Barrancas of Chihuahua. I know Richard knows pretty good. And I got the project to go to Barrancas in 98, I suppose. And we went there, and he turned around and he told me, "You got to be crazy to come down here and study plants." So I was really hurt to share the story with you people. I mean, a lot of people consider us as crazy people to be working with plants. So I'm really glad to see some of crazy people that are in front of me and that love plants, actually. So that's all I like to share with you, and maybe next time I can share something else.
Thank you, Tucha. So I think this is a good moment to share our last news of the meeting, right? So I will give the John and Caroline, are you ready?
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, everyone that came, and this was really fun to me. I have an announcement. We will need to have an election to fill vacancies on the board.
Current vacancies are vice president and recording secretary. The current board will meet soon to set up the election. Those interested in serving on the board should let us know let us know, and we will need a new president because I will be stepping down as chapter president for also. And candidates must be members of NPS and M.
That's all.
And there you have it. Don't all get up at the same time and to take my place. Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thanks to all of you and to the whole society. And I'm not going anywhere. Don't worry. I'll stay in Las Cruces.
Yeah.
We should have a party anyway.
Yes.
At least virtually.
Yeah.
Virtually.
We knew that this was a very great important news to share with you guys, with you all, and so we thought that maybe this would require, this would require its own meeting. So we will send an invite so everybody can participate on that meeting to discuss how do we gonna move forward with the organization and these changes in the Native Plant Society. So an invitation will come your way soon to discuss these issues.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everybody. Zach, and all you wonderful people who love plants.
Thank you, Caroline.
You're welcome.
Can we stop the recording now, Zach, maybe? And I think that this is all what we have on the table. If you